I'm Ty Hernandez.
And I'm Matt McClure, and this is Currents. Brooklyn gets some recognition from the Pope.
When I got the letter, I couldn't believe it. First of all, I'd love to know how it even came about.
Could a familiar fixture on your TV soon be a thing of the past?
Make religious programming be specific and exclude things like masses and religious instruction.
An American journalist tries to make a difference in the lives of children in India.
If I concentrate on this one orphanage, I can make a difference.
Good evening. For a lot of Catholics, springtime is a season for First Communions, confirmations, ordinations, and of course, weddings. Yesterday, though, for a group of laymen and women from the Diocese of Brooklyn, it also meant honors from the Pope.
They're called pontifical honors, and on Sunday, I attended a special liturgy and presentation ceremony and got to speak with some of the honorees. 41 men and women from the Diocese of Brooklyn and beyond were honored Sunday at the Cathedral Basilica of St. James. Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio presented the pontifical honors to those whom Pope Benedict is named to the Order of St. Gregory the Great and the Order of Pope St. Sylvester, along with recipients of the Pro Ecclesia et Pontifice Cross and the Benemerenti Medal.
Pontifical honors are directed to persons who live in communion with the Church and have given extraordinary service to the Church in one way or another.
It felt like a grain of sand in a beach, and just doing your own work, and suddenly, out of nowhere, you get a recognition from the Church. It's amazing.
Hermes Alas was among the honorees. An immigrant from the Philippines, Alas has been working with the Filipino Catholic community in Brooklyn and Queens.
When I joined in, I was first of all made head enabler for Queens area. And now, after 3 years, I continue to work with them as an advisor for the Filipino Diocesan Apostolate.
While some of the honorees were businessmen and women, doctors and judges, most were everyday people who've done a lot for others in Brooklyn, Queens, and across the world. The honorees I spoke with said the fact that they had been honored by Pope Benedict came as a complete surprise to them.
When I got the letter, I couldn't believe it. First of all, I'd love to know how it even came about. And I'm just so thrilled because it is such an honor and it's such a blessing.
I was at a meeting when Bishop DiMarzio announced that 40 people were going to receive papal honors. And I'm sitting there, so that's nice. I wonder who they are. And the next day I got the letter.
It's funny, on Fridays the tablet comes to the house. I read the tablet, didn't read that part. And on Saturday, I received an envelope and I opened it and there were tickets in it. And the letter says, as you are aware. I didn't have a clue. The next day I go to church and everyone in church, congratulations, congratulations. I said, what are you talking about? And they told me your name was in the tablet and that you were getting a papal award. So then I had to go in line now to read the tablet.
Michelle Guerrier was admitted to the Order of St. Gregory the Great, recognizing those who have shown dedication to the service of the Church or those who have benefited society. Pope John Paul II was the first pontiff to confer the honor on women in 1991.
I work with the probation department, and I work with youth that are in trouble, both adults and youth, but my main focus is on youth.
The Order of Pope St. Sylvester can be bestowed upon Catholics and non-Catholics alike. The Church says this order is meant to honor those who have lived exemplary lives by leading in business, the military, or society.
I was on the advisory board of the prayer channel from the very beginning, so I'm really very interested in what you do, and I was with CBS all my life. I'm a trustee in my parish. I schedule electors. I'm a minister, and I'm on many of the committees in the parish. And then I also am treasurer of Family Circle at Ozanam Nursing Home in Bayside.
Currently, I'm the director of the Pastoral Institute, and our primary mission is the formation of the laity. So we run a 3-year lay formation program which prepares volunteers for parish ministry in Brooklyn and Queens.
Now, the pontifical honors don't come with any special obligations for those named. They're just meant to be an acknowledgement of an individual's service to people and to the Church.
It's probably one of the most exciting things that I've experienced, and I'm so blessed because I do this work, but I do it because I enjoy it. And I'm just overwhelmed to have the honor for doing something I enjoy.
Now, for more information on the ceremony, including a list of all the men and women who were honored, you can go to our website, netny.net/currents, and click on Riding the Wave.
When Currents returns, today's headlines, plus much more. Stay with us.
Welcome back. I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Ty Hernandez. Turning to today's headlines, a church in Little Italy may get a big honor. Archbishop Timothy Dolan announced yesterday that he's going to ask the Pope to give Old St. Patrick's Cathedral on Mott Street the title of Basilica. It's a designation given to churches deemed to have special significance for a diocese. Archbishop Dolan made the announcement from the pulpit of Old St. Patrick's on Sunday, where he was celebrating the parish's 200th birthday. The church would be the first basilica in the New York Archdiocese. The Brooklyn Diocese has two, St. James Cathedral in downtown Brooklyn and Our Lady of Perpetual Help in Sunset Park.
British news services say Pope Benedict was, quote, very upset at details in a report on sex abuse in Ireland. The report showed that over a 60-year period, as many as 14,000 children were abused sexually and physically by members of religious orders. On Friday, the Pope met with two Irish bishops to discuss the report. Cardinal Sean Brady says Pope Benedict, quote, listened very carefully, very attentively, and very sympathetically to what the bishops had to say. Now, an American advocate of victims of clergy sex abuse says the Ireland report shows that the, quote, blame shifting and excuse making of church hierarchy is bogus.
When you think of running a marathon, New York and Boston probably immediately come to mind. But as we hear from the news service, Rome reports, when it comes to the year of St. Paul, you can add a lot of other cities to the list.
The same way St. Paul traveled across lands 2,000 years ago to preach the gospel, so also young people from around the world joined together to visit some of the same places and to share a message of hope. Running in the footsteps of St. Paul is an 800-mile marathon that took runners through Israel, Greece, Malta, and Italy. Thousands of young people have passed on this torch from Jerusalem to Rome. And when it arrived in Rome, it made it to the Pope's general audience. The marathon was organized by the John Paul II Foundation for Sports. Apart from the marathon, the event also included conferences, moments of prayer, and sharing of professional experiences in the world of sports.
We wanted to recuperate the sports dimension. St. Paul spoke of values you find in sports, like perseverance, alignment, teamwork, and respect for norms and each other.
Constantini also said that parents, educators, and priests were able to rediscover the importance of sports through this marathon as an educational tool for young people.
The year of St. Paul concludes on June 29th. We have much more ahead. Coming up later, orphans in India meet an American journalist lending a helping hand.
Also ahead, why some say we may see less religious programming in the future.
Kind of a bias against having any religious programming on something that has any kind of government support.
Public broadcasting may be saying farewell to stations that air religious programming. The board of PBS will vote this month on whether to drop any stations that air sectarian or religious shows. One of the casualties of the vote could be the Mass for Shut-ins, produced by the Passionist religious order.
And one person who knows the ins and outs of religious programming and has been following this story very closely is our station's founder, Monsignor Michael Dempsey. I had the opportunity last week to sit down and talk with him about it. I'm here with Monsignor Michael Dempsey, who is the Executive Director of Pastoral Communications for the Diocese of Brooklyn. And Monsignor, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it. Now, in 1985, PBS implemented a policy that said none of its affiliate stations could air any programming that was commercial, political, or sectarian. They've been sort of, I guess, lax about the enforcement of that, but now that might change. Why is that?
Well, a committee of PBS has made a recommendation to the board, its board, that sectarian mean religious programming. And now, of course, that could mean things like the Mass, could mean things like Mormon talks about their own religious programming. And it's a concern to us, obviously, because some stations do carry religious programming in that sense, not just programs about religion.
Gotcha. Now, how many PBS affiliate stations carry religious programming?
I'm not really sure, but I think it's a relatively small percentage of them. There's 354 stations altogether, I believe, and I'm aware of only 5, 6, 7, something like that, that actually carry programs that would be of interest to us. But I may be wrong on the total number.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think it was the Washington Post that did a big story on this, and you know, we're mentioning that maybe there were just a few.
Yes.
I think one was in Washington,
Yes.
in the Washington metro area. They are airing a Mass now for shut-ins, I believe?
That's right.
Okay.
Yes. The Archdiocese of Washington, D.C. has been carrying a Mass on that station for many years, and they have been notified by the general manager of the local station, which I believe is broadcast out of Howard University, that the Mass will no longer be carried. So that's a great problem for that Archdiocese and for the many people who are shut in who depend upon that service. But it's also true in New Orleans. They have a similar. In that case, the station is owned by a church-related group, Catholic church-related group. So here the station can't even do what, for its own people, what it would normally do, you see. It sounds kind of ridiculous when you think a bit about it. There's a diocese in Texas, Brownsville, that also broadcasts a Mass and is owned by the Archdiocese, by the diocese there. So that station will no longer be able to broadcast Catholic religious programming. Again, it makes very little sense.
You were telling me that before we went on air that PBS doesn't quite work like, say, one of the major networks. It's not; they're not providing all of the programming for a particular station. Tell me a little bit about the difference between what PBS does in providing a service of programming, and say if they were a network.
Yes. Well, PBS is a programming service of the PBS stations. The stations themselves own the service, but they also pay for the programming. In other words, this is not programming that's given to them because they're members of PBS. They have to pay for that programming. And right now they also get programming that they generate themselves, obviously, like Channel 13 here in New York, at WLIW, a little bit out the island. They also get programming from a number of other sources. So PBS is a large program service to them, but not the only one.
Gotcha, okay. Now, this policy, as we mentioned a few minutes ago, has been in place since 1985. They've been sort of lax about enforcing that. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's not just lax, it's the interpretation of what religious programming means. You're right, they haven't implemented a strict definition of the term. Now the inclination apparently is to make religious programming be specific and exclude things like masses and religious instruction, what we would call catechesis or evangelization type programs of any religious group, and that's the concern.
Yeah, PBS is considering taking away their affiliation, correct?
Yes. If you carried a religious program, they will put you out of the system of PBS stations, which in many cases I would imagine would be destructive to a station.
Now, this is not just, as we were mentioning, a Catholic issue per se.
No.
There are other religious groups as well that have some programs.
Yes, Mormons, for example, broadcast out of Brigham University Station, programs suited to their own religious group in that city, Provo, Utah, and they would lose their affiliation if they continued to do that.
Now, do you think that maybe since this issue is coming up now, is the government feeling some sort of, well, maybe religious programming will take over some of these stations, like maybe the station that's owned by the Catholic diocese that you mentioned earlier, or something like that? Do you think that's a concern, or if not, what is a driving force behind this move?
Well, that's one of the questions. Why are they doing it? Because there's nobody asking that it be done. There's no opposition to the programming that's on there. So the question is, why are you doing that? You have a good going system right now. It's very effective. People like it. Why start something new? Why change it? So there is a question, I think, about the motivation behind doing it. My impression is that it's a kind of a bias against having any religious programming on something that has any kind of government support. And there is, through the Corporation of Public Broadcasting, some government money in here. So the inclination is that that should exclude any religious affiliation type programming. Now, of course, we would oppose that thinking, and in this case, it seems to be an overreaction.
Yeah, one of the headlines that I saw about this was actually PBS. I think it said PBS considering separation of church and stations.
Stations, that's
so
right.
A little
that's
bit
right.
of
I saw the same article. Yeah. So they're in effect taking away the right of those stations to broadcast to their own constituency. Because remember, the stations are not owned by the PBS. These are owned by local companies. And so, in effect, the PBS is saying to them, if you use our programming, then you can't do what you want with your time on your station.
Okay. Well, very good. Monsignor, thank you so much for joining us today. We
You're welcome,
appreciate
Matt. Glad to.
Thanks. Monsignor Michael Dempsey, founder of the Prayer Channel. And the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops wants to know what you think. You can go to the Bishops' Conference website at www.usccb.org. It will let you know when the results of that vote come in, when it happens.
When we come back, changing lives, one child at a time.
This little girl looked up at me with the most beautiful, beatific smile I had ever seen in my life.
Finally tonight, we want to introduce you to a man who's been on quite a journey. His name is Paul Wilkes. He's been a journalist, a television producer, a co-founder of a charity, and for a while, he even considered becoming a monk. But right now, you're going to hear him talk about another important chapter in his life in tonight's Eyewitness.
I think we live out our faith in a very simple and very transparent way. I think God opens doors for us all the time. He just offers little opportunities to us and says, Paul, how about this one? How about this one? How about this one? And let me tell you about one of those opportunities in my own life. I was in India, tourist, air-conditioned car, having a great time. And we came to an orphanage. I was brought to it just because, by accident, really. And at the orphanage was this Salesian nun, and a little girl was standing next to her, and she had sunglasses on, and I asked the sister, what's going on? Nobody else had sunglasses on, and the sister took the sunglasses off, and I could see one of the eyes was dull. This little girl had been kidnapped, and someone had plunged a darning needle into that eye and blinded her on it. On that sunny, hot day in India, this little girl looked up at me with the most beautiful, beatific smile I had ever seen in my life, and something happened. I don't know what it was. I don't know what I was going through in my mind, but I just looked down at her and smiled back, and I said, I'm yours. And what that meant, what it has meant, is that I have, in essence, with my wife, adopted that orphanage. I mean, I can't take care of 500 million people in India. I can't go to Darfur. I can't go to Biafra. I can't go to a lot of places in the world, Appalachia, inner cities of our own cities, Brooklyn. But here I saw this little girl blinded by somebody's greed, sleeping on concrete, not eating the right kind of food, And I said, if I concentrate on this one orphanage, I can make a difference. It was like the Good Samaritan. It was like I probably have been given this opportunity many times in my life, and I just patted her on the head and gave her $5 and traveled on. This time it was different. And all of a sudden it just was clear as a bell to me. This is the way I can live out my Catholic life. I don't think I said it that way. I don't think people go around saying, well, I'm going to live out my Catholic life this way. This had been welling up in me. This is part of my formation. This is grade school, high school, college, and Catholic schools. This is my mother and father. It all came together just in that one moment where I said, look, Paul, your kids are out of college. You have no material needs. You have a coat on or a pair of pants and a pair of shoes, and you have a car and your house. You can make your payments. What else do I need? And I said to myself, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take care of Rena and these girls in the orphanage. And since that day, we've been able to build them a new dormitory. 5 of those girls are on to college. They have a new vehicle. They have clean water. Just because of that one smile on that sunny, hot afternoon in Cochin, India, at Home of Hope Orphanage. It changed my life. It really gave me the opportunity to live a full Catholic life with and for those kids.
That was Paul Wilkes. And for more information on his work in India, you can go to www.homeofhopeindia.org. And we're going to have much more of Paul Wilkes tomorrow. Natalia Ortiz sat down with him for an extended interview to hear about his surprising life and his deep connection to Brooklyn. That and much more, of course, tomorrow on Currents. And before we go, I just wanted to say, so often I've been to developing countries, particularly Latin America, and you see the children there and you're just so overwhelmed by it all. I really give credit to those who go back and try to make a difference on a much more meaningful level.
That's right. You have to look up to it. And you also, I mean, it just goes to show how one moment can really change somebody's life, because, you know, in his story, all it took was for that little girl to look up at him and smile, and he says, I've got to help these people.
Yeah.
And, you know, and great smiles, by the way, at the end of that piece. It's just so nice to see, literally see what a difference that the work has made.
Absolutely. So many others grateful for the choice that he made to go back.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for joining us here on Currents tonight. Remember, we're always online at www.netny.net. And we'd also like to hear what you think. You can email us at dropusaline@currentsny.net. Thanks for watching. I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Ty Hernandez. Have a great one.